So, a very, very good day to you. Welcome to Compassion Check-In. I'm Rasheed, Ogunlaru, coach, speaker, and author. And today our topic is peace. And there's not much that's more important than that. And here I'm joined by the wonderful crew. Top picture here is Alexandra. Do you want to wave and say hello?
Hello, everyone.
And we've got Iris with us as well. Iris.
Hello.
And we've got Danny in my next picture. Danny.
Yeah, hello.
And Frank.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent. Good to see you all. So today's topic is peace. And it's an interesting topic. I think there's a wonderful quote, which I'm going to have to look up because I don't want to misquote it. I'm going to look it up in the meantime, which relates to peace. But this is such an important topic personally and professionally. Alexandra, I'm going to turn to you first because I know that part of your background, which many people might not know, is in journalism. And I know that you've known times of where to live in a time where it's not peace. You know, most of us, hopefully on this call, will be lucky enough to be at place, time and peace. But we know at many times for many countries and many places, that's not always the case. So I just want to turn to you first, just to find out what this word means to you and any opening thoughts or feelings you have about it.
Thank you. I really didn't want to miss this session, even if I can't stay too long. But the peace is like everything. Everything to me is the foundation, is the basis of my being, of whatever I do. It's like it's motivated by creating more peace or regaining peace. And as most of you know who were through these compassion check-ins, like my personal also life story, it was not an easy one. So my dad was violent. So I lived like in war zone all my life. And then there was a war in Croatia after when I left it, when I was 18. And then also, again, I struggled in my personal life, like in going through bad relationships. So although I wanted peace, I kind of was, there was a lot of not opposite of peace around me. So I just remember also for my birthdays, I always asked my mom, like, she said, what do you want? I just want peace. Like, I just want peace. I don't want anything material. I just want peace. But she couldn't provide it to me. My country could not provide it to me. I was like really never enveloped in peace, but I yearned for that so strongly. And that's why I started meditating and doing yoga and all kinds of things and writing articles that were actually not about peace, because I wrote a lot about like a social injustice, about incest, about all things that were like nobody wanted to talk about. But I realized you have to unearth the bad things to come to the good things, and that's not an easy process and project, and nobody likes that. People think you just close your eyes and it's peace. Yes, but it's artificial peace. You have to deal with the dark side of yourself and everything to get to peace. So peace is a process, and it's never ending. We have to reintroduce ourselves to our motivation and to real struggle to gain peace, to help others find peace. But I think there's nothing more valuable than peace on this planet.
Wow, what a powerful start. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's very, 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 very profound. You know, talking about, what was this, can I just ask one supplementary question to that? How did you find it? You talked about how you, from very early on, your mother would ask what you want for birthday, whatever, just on peace and so on. What for you was the secret of you finding peace? Was it mindfulness? Was it meditation? Was it time in nature? Was it just your own heart calling to yourself? What was it that enabled you to find peace? Because many people never find it. So also, what for you, how did you find it?
I think it's just the goodness. I mean, like peace, I think it's inherently in us. It just gets buried with a lot of stuff on top of it. And it's the same with goodness. I think we are all good. It's just we get kind of distracted and pre-programmed. So just like always being connected to goodness, to seek goodness, to look for goodness, to unearth goodness in me, and like really like unapologetically, like really just always try to promote that and protect it. So for me, peace and goodness, that was looking for goodness in literature, looking for goodness in politics, in leaders, in sports, anything that is like just good, inherently, like utterly, like it's not like artificial, it's like goodness, it's in all of us, just like peace. It's just that we get really distracted.
Who would you like to pass the baton on to?
Oh, Frank, I
Frank
think Frank has sorry, Frank.
Frank.
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying, for me, this is the most profound of the subject matters we've looked at, because coincidentally, I've been thinking about it myself, and I agree with Alexandra in that it's something within us, but I do believe that it's also relative, because I believe that at the moment we're all in turmoil, we're all effectively at war. You only have to look at the Brexit, the Remainers and the Stayers. I'm really worried what's going to happen in a week's time in America, because that's where my dad lives, because you've got two polarized camps. You've seen record turnout to vote. And the thing about, for me, peace, there has to be an element of compromise. There has to be an element of seeing another person's point of view. And we seem to have lost that innate skill. It's, we tend to be just really polarized. It's my view, nothing else matters. And I'm not seeing much change in that. That, if you look at this country, you look at the Remainers and the Brexiteers, they're still polarized. And partly, I think part of that is because nobody is prepared to give way and say, well, actually, I'm going to be magnanimous here. We, okay, you didn't get what you want, but let's try and make it palatable. Let's try and make it, give it, end up with a system or a regime that everybody can live with and everyone benefits with. And they just won't do that. And that's one of the things that, as I said, that's why I've been giving it a lot of thought, because in some ways I'm quite envious of my dad and that generation, because nobody's promised tomorrow, but I'm going to be seeing a very different world from the one that I was born into.
Very powerful. Thank you so much for that. I think it's very powerful how you bring, it's powerful how Alexandra brought a very, very personal picture of this, and then you set the scene of where we are right now, be it in terms of the UK with Brexit and leaving and what's going on. We're just on the verge of the elections in the United States, which may have happened, will probably have happened by most people watch this, and then that, and how things can become very, very polarized. And as you highlighted, and even we see it in the world scene, even places that were developed in times of post-war to develop peace, places like UN really, really struggle because people become polarized and camps of things become, things are vetoed and so on. So what you're saying is very, very powerful. And then this element about how it requires a degree of compromise. I just found that quote that I was looking for. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, then the world will know peace. That's a powerful quote. Who would you like to pass the baton to? Frank, who are you passing on the baton to?
I'm going to pass it on to Danny. I'm just making a note of the quote, sorry.
Yeah.
Because I really...
Thanks, Frank. And my heart's almost kind of racing with hearing both Alexandra and Frank and how they're talking. It's some really, really good, just such good conversation so far. And likewise, it's been something that, for me personally, has been so important in my life to have and to find and to try and grasp what peace actually is, because it seemingly, like, for a long period as well of my own life, it's gone through its troubles, and it's really hard when you're in the midst of all those troubles to find peace. But despite the pandemic, despite all the polarization and all the things that are going on in the world, it's actually been the first year I've really been comfortable with saying that there's some peace in my own life, in the little bit surrounding that I can see right in front of me, which has been quite remarkable. And it's been due to folk and other people on these conversations that we're having, and Rash especially, and other people like just couldn't have kind of got there and found this space. So really appreciate everyone here, and just how conversation, like Frank was saying, it's so polarized that conversation I think is so important, but it's so hard to just begin to understand how to have a conversation when we are seemingly programmed into be a certain way, and to kind of have all this technology and have all of these ways in our cultures of upbringing to just kind of see what a clear conversation looks like. And I've realized recently that's so important to not only have with others, but to also have with yourself. Like the Jimi Hendrix quote there's upteen amounts of songs that have kind of gone over my head for years that I've loved, but I've only really been able to try and understand some of the lyrics behind them and some of the notions behind them. And just a song came on today called From the Wood Brothers, and I just earmarked it. It's in the shop, just doing a client. The song came on. It's called Sing About It by the Wood Brothers. And even that, there's so much peace that the lyricists are trying to get across in this song. It's just about, if you're worried, if you're lost, if you're troubled, if you're just going through these lyrics now, if you're broken, just saying, sing about it, sing about joy, sing about being lost, sing about being broken, and just have that conversation that no matter what, just by talking and having a conversation is, for me anyway, the best way I've been able to find certain peace. And it's just been really profound to have that. And there's another song that on the way to work this morning I was listening to, and it was so deep in its meaning that I couldn't quite see before. I don't know if I'd share this now or share it later. Maybe I'll wait for Iris to speak, but I'd like to come back to it because it was just so, it was just so amazing. And I'll maybe talk about it a bit later. I'll wait for Iris to speak, but that's kind of my opening, I guess, for today.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Danny.
It's really, really powerful. I want to read, now you've started off on lyrics, I want to read a lyric. A bonus point for who can tell me who the songwriter is. Give you a clue. They had, I'll give you one clue if you want to, but I'll read it. Maybe some of you know it. This is from a song called Saltwater. I've always loved this lyric from when I was a teenager. We're a rock revolving around a golden sun. We're a billion children rolled into one. So when I hear about the hole in the sky, salt water wells in my eyes. We climb the highest mountain. We make the desert bloom. We're so ingenious we can walk on the moon. But when I hear how the forests have died, salt water wells in my eye. I have lived for love, but now it's not enough. The world I love is dying, and now I'm crying. And time is not a friend, no friend of mine. As friends, we're out of time, as it's slowly passing by right before our eyes. We like the deepest oceans. We send photographs of Mars. We so enchanted by how clever we are. Why should one baby feel so hungry, she cries. Saltwater wells in my eyes. I have lived for love, but now that's not enough. The world I love is dying, and now I'm crying. Time is not a friend, no friend of mine. As friends, we're out of time, and it's slowly passing by right before our eyes. We are a rock revolving around a golden sun. We're a billion children rolled into one. What will I think of me the day that I die? Saltwater wells in my eyes. Bonus point if you can tell me who the songwriter is, and I can give you a clue. If you want a clue, I will give you a clue. Anyone know it? Let's put my, shall I give you a clue? They have a very famous dad who was very passionate about peace. That's a big clue. So the dad was in a very, very successful group. So if you guess the dad, think about pretty.
Was it Amali? Was it Amali?
No, but you're kind of in the right kind of space. Somebody who's really well known for peace. Who else was known for peace? Who was in a very successful group? Think it's Saltwater by Julian Lennon, the son of John. Julian Lennon, beautiful song. It's funny, isn't it, this thing about, and it's interesting, you know, that there is this thing about war, peace, and protest songs, and poetry, and creativity. I'm just about to turn to Iris, but I've been really touched, very touched by what everybody has said so far, and it strikes me that peace is first and foremost, it has to be something that has to be found in your own heart. I've got a quote of my own which says, the stiller you are, the calmer life is. the stiller you are, the calmer life is. So I think picking up on what you said, Alexandra, this journey has to begin within, because otherwise I'm going to add more noise, more violence, more anger. Iris, over to you. Peace. It's quite a deep and beautiful and poetic and somber session so far, but magically so. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it works on a number of levels. Like Frank was saying, there is what's happening in our world, in society, in our neighborhoods. And that is maybe something where we can contribute, but we can't control it necessarily. And then there is your inner world. And I think there, to me, the greatest gift was understanding how to shut up that voice of the mind. Because the interesting thing I find about, I think with a lot of people that is the case, I haven't met anybody who has a positive, yappy voice, but it seems like that voice in our head is always finding issues, troubles, worries, pains, bad memories. It never goes like, oh, this is going to be a wonderful day and amazing things will happen. We find love, butterflies, unicorns. It always has dread in its intention for some odd reason. And I think learning to shut up that voice is a big gift for personal peace. And the skill to live in the now, because all I have and can influence at the moment is the now. Tomorrow will what tomorrow will bring. Yesterday is gone and I can only learn from it, but I have to let that go. So I think that is so controlling the mind, living in the now, and also gratitude and looking at blessings, because it's also our choice to look at the good that life gives us, which I think gives us peace, rather than thinking about the lack or what's missing, because by focusing on the goodness, more goodness will come, which will give peace. And then there is a gray area between that, what's inside and outside of us. And I think that is when we are in situations where we potentially create inner conflict and wrong peace by agreeing to things to keep the peace, but actually creating war inside ourselves. And that dissonance inside is an inner war, whilst keeping an external peace with other people. So that is something to watch out for. And then one thing I learned a few years ago, which I found really interesting, is that trauma is a genetic thing that is passed on. And it's actually a proven fact, even in animals, you can find that. So, and I'm born into a generation, so my parents are war children who lived through the traumas of war. And in that sense, there's also an inherited trauma of war that I think a lot of people aren't quite aware of, and understanding what that actually means for our lives.
It's very powerful, you know, really powerful. Very, very, very powerful. I mean, there's so many things that you're saying there about this piece within you. As you were saying, that made me think of another a quote. Those within a peace, this is one of mine, those within a peace do not battle themselves, nor do they wage war on others. You know, those within a peace do not battle themselves, nor do they wage war on others. And I think that, again, there's this theme about the importance of us going on this inner journey of peace. And I so agree with you, you know, Iris, this point about the role that gratitude can play. Let's say hi to Kojo. We're talking today about peace, Kojo. I'm just going to hand it back to Danny, put his hand up, and I think Frank, and then we'll bring you in. Today we're talking about peace, and lots has already been said about it, this thread about this inner peace. And I love this point about gratitude and seeing the blessings. I think you also touched on this word acceptance, which I think is a key part of it, because as you say, you know, very often we become conditioned, we think about this and that, and so constantly there's a restlessness. We're this, I've got to do this, I've got to achieve this, I've got to sort this, I've got to resolve this. And I love the point when you made the point that we may be able to contribute, but we can't completely control this whole experience. And so therefore, I think we do often add to the noise of life very, very, very often. Danny, you wanted to come back, and then we'll bring in Frank, and then we'll bring back in Bonte, Kojo, and our topic being peace. Yeah, Danny.
It was just a quick one off the back of, I totally agree with a lot of what Iris has said, and it's amazing again to hear somebody else speak about this because it's just such a big topic. But the way that I found dealing with it was not kind of by pushing it away or shutting it up. It was more by just living with it and being with it more. That's been for years and years. I would constantly shut the noises up in my head as well and try and get rid of them, but that seemed to only make it worse by trying to kind of keep it in its box. It actually changed a lot for me when I was like more accepting of those voices, more accepting of the bad things, the bad thoughts, the kind of conditioning and the kind of way that the trauma played out in my life. Just thought.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think just before I bring Frank back in and coach, I think it's really important. I think it's really important. You know, very often we live in this dualistic world, isn't it? And war, fire, hurt, anger, death, all of these things, awful things, pain, hurt. But there's something I think about, and again, you touched on it, you began by talking, Alexandra, when you talked about as a journalist needing to write about some of the things that we might shut up that are very important so we can come to a point of understanding and so on. So I feel that sometimes when we understand what is it that causes somebody to feel anger, I mean, often let's start from a very low level, frustration, anger, pain, hurt. What is it that makes people want to harm, often then, I used to be a Samaritan volunteer, themselves? And let's start off with themselves, or then others and so on. What is it that kind of creates that? I think there's something about, and Frank, you touched on this too, that because we live in such a polarized world, often we don't have room for somebody who sees things differently from us, who looks differently, thinks differently, believes different things from us and so on. Often there's not that room. Until we understand that, until we can hold that space, or it's going to be very, very, very difficult to arrive at peace. So I agree with you, Danny. There's something about being able to sit with that kind of space. And then sometimes, I mean, I don't know if you've even had this on a small level, where have you ever had the scenario with somebody who, for example, let's say you've had challenges with in life. It could be a family member, or it could be a colleague, it could be a neighbor. And then you decide to look at them with fresh eyes. Right? You decide to look at them with fresh eyes, or to meet them more warmly. The number of times that suddenly all of that stuff, and suddenly there's communion, there's camaraderie, there's connection, because I'm not coming from this so often. But so how much of the war, the fire, the battle is that we project? This person's this is going to be that, this day is going to be like this is going to be like this, is going to be awful, and therefore we create that, and including. We live in a world like it, then we have ideas about people we've never met. I remember, you know, very, very, very briefly, you know, bring Kojo in. Frank, I think you may have had some, so then bring Kojo in. I happen to know the brother of the founder of Ryanair. The founder of Ryanair was called Tony Ryan. His brother was called Kel Ryan. One of his brothers called Kel Ryan, who passed a couple of years ago. And one of the things that Kel told me once, a lovely guy, warm-hearted, Irishman, warm-hearted. And one of the things he told me once is that he said, oh, he told me when he'd recently come back from Iraq. Iran. And it's interesting, in certain parts of the world, different parts of the world have all sorts of different reputations. He said it was one of the most beautiful places in the world he'd been to, that the people were just among the warmest people he'd ever met. Here's somebody flown all over the world. Isn't it interesting, our perceptions that we have about people we've never met and so on? And I thought that was really interesting. And it's funny, the things that we can perceive that we just know nothing of. I bet you've all know even individuals that people have told you stories of, and you meet them and they're completely different. Frank, do you want to come in, or do you?
Yes, please, thank you. Just a couple of things. I'm really grateful to Iris for bringing in the transgenerational trauma, because that's something that I only just very recently learnt about during Black History Month. But I wanted to go back also. Sorry, Iris, I'm not. You know, it's just that what you've said ticked so many boxes for me. One of the things that I've learnt to embrace and own is my negativity bias, and that basically is that predisposition to go and search out for the thing that you want to challenge, you know, and things that just look wrong to you, and I think that for me goes hand in glove with I believe how a lot of us got to this place where we are in terms of not having peace, because we're always looking for that next challenge, always looking to fix, fix something or somebody. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
That's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, that doesn't match our perception of it. That's so powerful, isn't it? That's so powerful. And one thing that struck me a while ago was thinking about, and it's beautiful how this conversation on peace is evolving. I once thought one of the issues around when we're fighting for things and when we think that we're right is that every group who thinks that they're right. And what can happen is you become so entrenched that you're right. Your football team, your faith, your this, your that, your ideology, so you become entrenched in that. How much closer does that actually bring you to peace? So again, I go back to this thing about this room in your heart. Can you find the room in your heart? And another quote of mine before I bring in Kojo, this one, and I love it, everything boils down to love and compassion or its absence. Everything boils down to that self-love, that taking that time to really connect to oneself, that healing journey with oneself, and having room to, there's a lot of stuff done in a lot of traditions, forgiveness or wishing people well, forgiveness, meditations, that kind of stuff. Letting go, particularly of past battles, this person, the ex-partner, this person, the former boss, and so on. You know what I mean? It goes on. And I think what you just said there, Frank, is very, very, very powerful. And I think that I'd love to see more of that happen, where people talk about that. Kojo, thanks for coming in. And as always, I love the way you always thoughtful, pensive, soaking things up and considering stuff. A fascinating topic that you've joined us for today. Peace. What's your thoughts on it?
You're on. Oh,
yeah, I'm all ready now. Thank you for letting me coming through this morning or this afternoon. Peace. Frank used the word embrace, and it's about embracing oneself, and that's what I want to borrow from him, if he wouldn't mind. But
you've got it.
Yeah, I've taken it. Thank you. I have it. Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Peace for me is about embracing oneself and knowing that regardless of everything that goes around you, you are enough. And you have this embracing of self. And you have this ease with self, knowing that regardless of what is happening around you, you have this centering of knowing that I am okay. I will be okay. And when I'm not okay, I am okay to say I'm not okay. And it goes back to last 2 weeks, the duality, the understanding to know that I am okay. It will be all right. Even though I don't know how this is going to happen, because I have this peace, this ease in myself, I am able to sit back and say, I'll be fine. Or I don't know what is going to happen, but I have this sincerity of heart to know that I would be okay. Because other people have gone through this and they came out fine. And I believe I will be okay. So it comes back to the embracing of self and understanding that you will be fine. Regardless of what happens, we'll be fine. Finish of it.
I think that's a very beautiful thing to say. There's something very, very poetic about it. It's almost like a lullaby, isn't it? That very often, whatever it is that we're going personally, professionally, in relationships and work or what have you, or as a species, in fact, we can often think, that's the end of it, or I'm never going to recover from this or whatever, and that things do pass and that the seasons do pass. And often I think we don't take the lessons from the seasons. If you think about it, this season, autumn, is a season which is about a number of things, but it's about harvesting all the things that we've learned and gathered before, but it's also telling us that there's a tough season ahead. So it's about that preparedness, isn't it? And then winter. So for me, there's something about each season, and of course, winter is often barren, but winter in a way is about the finality. It reminds us that this thing is finite. So there's something, it invites us, I think, to be compassionate to life and to appreciate this circle and to arrive at a place of greater peace and acceptance and of the flow of life. Very powerful. Who wants to come back in? And please, Alexandra.
So this is really about embracing, as you all now mentioned, and I just want to tell you that, you know, I never talked about my personal things before. So it's because of you all providing this space, I have been able to express that after 49 years, you know, living in this body, in this mind, what has happened to me, because I don't know what opposite of peace is, but maybe it's fear, because I was also scared to talk about it. I didn't want to offend anyone. I just so embracing it, that it's my life is my responsibility, and that I'm not hurting anyone if I talk about what has happened to me, and I have to build it up from the ground zero. And for that, one has to be authentic and honest. But how can I help someone and tell them to be authentic and honest if I'm not? So, I mean, it's only through these sessions that I'm now talking about this. I have never, ever talked about this. And there are many people who know me who would never, ever think of this, that this had happened to me, because I would never talk about it. I just thought I have to just be this friendly, smiley person, just being there for others. But peace is about, for me, it's helping others. I cannot just be peaceful myself if I know I'm not helping others. And I cannot help others if I don't tell them who I am, what I have been through. So that may really even help them to be open and honest and ask for help.
What you're saying here is so powerful. Thank you so much. And it reminds me of why, you know, I set up a compassion check-in, and you've just brought to mind a quote. I love when quotes come to me. You know, that there is a potion that can be distilled from pain. There's a potion that can be absolutely distilled from pain. Pain, what we often don't think about when we think about pain, pain has within it healing qualities. When we hear anybody authentically speak about their pain, their challenges, it immediately has healing properties. You can hear it, you can feel it now in this particular space. It's potent, it's absolutely potent. So I think there's so many different things here. There's something about hearing these stories, and we've known it, isn't it, generations in so many different cultures and so on, where we'll hear stories, people will tell different stories, different fables, you know, different all of these things and sharings to help us come to greater wisdom, healing, understanding, and what have you. But there's some, thank you so much for sharing what you said, because to me, you're such a evident healer. I mean, you're a healer. I mean, Alexandra, it's so clear that you're a healer. You're one of life's healers. I have a saying, which is, you know, before the healing we want to see in the world to take place, first of all, the healers need to take their place. But first, then the healers must do their healing. But once the healers have done their healing, it's important that they're in the world. It's so important that they're in the world, singing their song, dancing their dance. And bring that. And you see it in so many different ways. A person who's been who was a criminal before, and they're drawn into it, maybe when they're young, maybe when they're thinking, who goes into prisons, does such incredible work. The people who do community work, the person who's done this, the person who's done that. We see it very often. But I think we're at a point where we need to ask ourselves, do we, and it's interesting what the place that Frank took us to, do we believe that people can change or can't they? Do we think that somebody can possibly, in some way, I mean, otherwise mother will give up, because on a small level, you know, everybody will have had an error, you know, where they shouted at this person, they were cruel to this person, they did this, they, you know, they stole pocket money when they were 8 years old, they did this, they did that. So I think there is that thing about sharing those healing stories, having that space for other people who are hurting. I think that's everybody's responsibility, what comes to me, and spot it. You know, sometimes those people are really angry that we wage war with. I particularly think about somewhere like work where people spend so much time. Those people are, name me one who's not hurting. You know, the boss who's this, like this. I mean, you all know what I'm talking about. The person who's like, name me one of those people who's not heat. I can think of all sorts of people on the world scene who are hurting big time. Danny.
Can I just jump in and off the back of Alexandra, just to say it's so brave and it's so amazing to hear the story that Alexandra's telling, because it takes so much bravery to actually get to that stage to let it out. And it's that song that I was saying about the beginning of this call, actually, that for me, it touches me a lot, as the way music and poems and all these creative outlets that we can have in dance or theatre, whatever, they kind of speak to us in certain ways. And this is about it. It's the end of the song. It just says, may they all be feathers. And I really like that word feathers. It's I guess about just being lighter, not being rocks or stones with all the burden that we carry around with us, but may they all be feathers. May we all be feathers, in that we can unburden the rocks from our bag. We can unburden all these things, or the weight of the words that we carry from someone that might have hurt us, or the weight of the wars that people have had before us, or just the weight of everything in our lives that have mounted to this place that we're at right now. If we can kind of one by one start unburning in these things. And the best way for me as well has always been talking about it and having a conversation about it, because the more that the rocks are kept inside me, the more heavier the bag gets. And there's something about being as light as a feather that's able to kind of go through the peaks and troughs of life, whether it's, you know, the wind is blowing me one way or it's blowing me the other way, but at least I'm sort of more lighter like a feather than carrying all these heavy rocks. And I just found it so amazing to hear it put in these words. I love that word feather, something really nice about it, and about sharing each other's burdens, about sharing each other's rocks. Then we can get that compassion to understand where each other's coming from. If somebody has had this experience of their life being in a war-torn country, and someone else has the experience of their life being in a war-torn family, they kind of are all the same, really. They're just different experiences. And the song kind of makes a point of that. We are just like you. We're just like each other. We have different experiences and we have different things going on, but ultimately there's so much that is alike between us all, that by sharing our experiences and our burdens and our rocks, we can begin to understand each other's points of views a little bit more, just from our own experiences, because that pain and that hardship is always there within. Like I said, name anybody who hasn't got that with them, but it's that we keep it so close to us that how can we help if we can't share each other's experiences through our pain and through our anger and our frustration. For me, that's been the biggest key, is listening to other people's frustration, unburning and unloading my own frustrations, and finding a ground somewhere where we just kind of become light like a feather and just start feathering around the world. And it's only been so recent for me, as being so groundbreaking. It's, you know, this song I've been listening to for so long, I just didn't hear it enough. It wasn't there, but I just guess it wasn't the right time for me to hear this sort of thing. But now that it has been, it just feels so remarkable. So it may or may not resonate, I guess, but I'll post it up again, the link to it, and see what you guys all think. But thanks.
I'm going to bring Koja back, and you just had your hand up. I was just thinking as Danny was speaking, I was thinking about that, and again, I agree with that, the power and that beauty of us being lighter rather than heavy. But and at the same time, I wondered something else. I wondered, how willing are we prepared to take on somebody else's challenge, somebody else's burden? How prepared are we? Because so often we walk by, don't we? I mean, we all do. I mean, I've done it. You know, we all do, you know, but we do it, don't we? We do it all the time. We watch the ad on the TV and we see the pain, and then we switch the channel, or we shake our head, you know. So I was going to bring before Frank in on this point, because in, you know, the world of that you work in equality, diversity, inclusion, you know, how prepared are we to even up the playing field? How many seats are around the table? Am I prepared to give up my own seat around the table, or am I comfortable being where I am? This is a challenge, isn't it? Koja, I'm going to bring you in there, and I think it's a huge challenge for all of us. And I'll own that too. I think it's a huge challenge, isn't it? But Koja, what were you going to share?
I wish you had me, or you could have seen my countenance with a smile, because I laughed and hysterically laughed whilst you were talking. How ready are we prepared to take on somebody's pain? And picking up from what Danny said about the lightness and being furthest. 3 years ago, I had a very good friend who I knew had gone through a particular challenge in life, and he was my friend, but we talked. But at some point, there was a misbehavior that I should have taken a back seat, right? And understand his point of view. But I just walked away. I just walked away and walked away without blinking. And for the past 3 weeks, I'm thinking, I've just been thinking about this person, coronavirus and all the rest of it. And I'm saying, I'm not going to call this guy. I'm not going to call this chap. I'm not going to call him. I am not going to call him. And his thought will flash through my mind. I'm saying, I'm not going to call him. And I can hear myself saying, call him now. And I'm saying, I'm not going to call him. And when you have this tangle with yourself, right? Then 2 days ago, I'm thinking, listen, I'm going to put every pride, arrogance, swagger, sagacity, pride, everything away. And I'm going to call this guy. And I'm going to see how I'm going to feel after this. I call this person. Now, fear has a way of denying us of peace, because I had given every reason and I had explained and been able to break down all his behavioral weaknesses. And Frank talked about our own the negative biases, right? And I called him, and when he picked the phone, he goes, hello? And I go, yeah, hi. And he goes, you called me? And I said, yes, because I want to talk to you. And the person said this, Rash, this is what the person said. He said to me, I've always wanted to call you, but I didn't know how you were going to respond when I call you. And I said, well, I've also been wanting to call you all along, but I wasn't so sure that you were going to be nice. And the rest is history. We're back together, we're talking, we getting on with it. But I can tell you how light and how free I feel, because I am not scared. I wasn't scared to confront my own self. I wasn't scared to carry the weight on. And who am I? You said something, Rash. Who is walking around the place without a head? Who am I to put anybody on the cross? Who am I to have some kind of power to want to break down somebody's weaknesses? So I said, listen, I'm sorry. I think I went in too quick and placed you on trial, and I come on the witness stand to say, listen, I was wrong, guilty. He said, listen, let's get on with it. And I want to thank you for bringing this space up, because I just felt, no, I wouldn't let this rob me. This is a good man. This is my friend. And I wouldn't let a conduct or behavior that he displayed deny me of that. And I wouldn't let pride deny me of my good friend. And I'm walking in peace now, regardless. Thank you, Rash.
No, you're so welcome. And it's like I think about all those things getting in the way today. Peace, like pride or my own perception or my own
my own negative bias.
Yeah. It's my own stuff. It's invariably, isn't it? Our own stuff. Oh, we're heading toward the end. I mean, I could talk about this topic absolutely all day. But just in terms of time, I'm going to invite everybody to give us a wrap up. But there's something I feel as though there's almost some unfinished business here with peace. And maybe I almost feel as though we should, next time, even though we've begun to talk about it, I'm almost tempted to call it Peace Part 2 or Inner Peace. There's something more here about peace. I wonder if we should break the rules and continue talking about peace.
That would be nice.
Yeah, Frank, we can't hear you. So I'm going to let you begin the wrap up and do your feedback at the same time. So Frank, if you want to unmute yourself.
Sorry, yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, we have to take this to the next week. because I think I've got a lot more to say about it. And to be honest, I just want to park that here right now, because it's to be continued. So there's no point summing up at this point.
I like it. So I like that. I like that. So it'll be Peace Part 2. Right. Wow. Very interesting. I'm just going to let everyone just say maybe a last word that you might want to take away from you. Anything that you wanted to take away from you then, Frank, from today, or that you're wanting to, carry?
All I wanted to say is that for me, I think this has probably been the most emotional of conversations. It's certainly been the deepest. And it's just so multifaceted, you know, really, really. And I think it's brought us as a group closer, because you have taken, you know, some of us have dropped those barriers and those shields.
Wonderful, thank you. Are you going to pass the baton to?
I'm going to pass the bat on to Iris, because I've been following you all of this session, so I may as well continue that theme.
Oh, you're just on mute, Iris. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, well, thank you, Frank. Yeah, it's a wonderful session, and I think, yeah, it's true. There's so much more to say. I think it was interesting what Alexandra was saying earlier on about talking about injustice and taking a stance. And I think that it's an interesting question maybe to explore also next time. Is, you know, how much can we stand up and contribute? What is our role to play beyond our safe little bubble and keeping ourselves sane and at peace, you know, but how much can we contribute and reach out?
I really like that. I like that. I think that might be good. And I'm thinking that I'm just looking at my diary, and next week we might make it I'll get back to everyone. We might even have a slightly later start at 12:30. Were you going to pass the baton to Iris?
I would pass it on to Danny.
Thank you, Iris. And yeah, just echoing again what a group all of these sessions are, and what an amazing group of people. And
It'll be available on box set. I think I need to do the box set, and we need to do a best of. Sorry, Dan, back over to you.
Sorry, I was checking my diary for next week as well to see what it was like. I guess just to wrap up, may they all be feathers. End of the song, may they all be feathers.
Kojo.
It's my wish that we all experience peace. All our peace, and every peace that we so wish and desire in everything that we do. The peace that my mother would say, the peace that passes all understanding, that will bring hope to all of us. And we go through the day, through the week, experiencing the peace that we seek, and we'll find it. Looking forward to Peace Part 2.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's beautifully said. That's beautifully said. I wonder if I just want to invite us maybe to end with maybe just a minute of
Just wanted to say quickly, I never fully understood the phrase, he ain't heavy, he's my brother, until I started coming along to these sessions.
Yeah. It's interesting because now you've said that, it's made me think. I was going to invite Stone in a minute of peace, but it's making me think about the other meaning of that word, enlightenment. We think about enlightenment meaning getting to some nirvana state of spiritual bliss, but perhaps enlightenment is actually the letting go of all the weights of all of these things that we carry, all of the ideas, all the weights, all the stresses, and all of these things. So there's something about that lightness, that feathers, and that and that stillness. So I'm going to invite everybody maybe who's listening to maybe to walk quietly and peacefully as they move forward. So instead of us taking a minute's silence here, maybe I'm just going to invite everybody afterwards just to take a moment or a minute in silence. And if you've been watching this, I'm going to invite you just to take a minute of silence and to try and carry that silence with you, and that peacefulness, that peaceful heartedness into the world and into your work. And I just want to say a very, 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 very big thank you. I think I agree. I've said it so many times that various ones have been my favorite, but this is Yeah, peace. Peace is a favorite one. Very tempted to say peace out, but peace is in. So thank you all very much. Take good care, and see you next week. I will message everybody about hopefully we will do next week. Take really, really good care. See you.